See if you can find ease. What does ease mean to you? See if you can find it right now, here in this moment. It might involve you relaxing some of the muscles within your body. It might involve giving up the need to do anything serious. And sometimes we perceive meditation as something quite serious because people don't talk, people don't smile. There are big signs up saying, please maintain silence. And so it can appear to be a very serious practice. But let's release those notions. In fact, let's release everything we know about meditation and mindfulness and whatever you've practiced before that's similar to this. Well, we're releasing. Why don't we also release all the education that we've accumulated? And I don't just mean the education that comes from schools and colleges and universities and all of that, but everything else that we've learned from our parents, our teachers, our friends, the world around us, constantly trying to teach us something about the others, about ourselves, about what's right and what isn't. As you exhale, feel yourself releasing everything that you know, everything that I know, because this is a very different practice. It's very different from any of those educations that we've been through, where we look, we read, we absorb information and attempt to retain it and reproduce it. This is a very different practice because the less you know, the better. The less I know, the better. This is a practice where we shift from identification with that which we know towards that which we don't, where ignorance becomes our greatest friend. And feel yourself becoming lighter as you enter into this space. Where as you breathe out, you release. And having released all of that, or at least attempted to, having started the process, what's left? Can you notice what's left? Is there anything at all that, of course I'm not asking you to look for problems, but is there still anything that's in this present moment that you can notice as being less than comfortable? It could be one of the stories that you've brought with you, Stories, and I do not mean any disrespect by calling it a story, but right now the reality, the truth is that we are sitting here and breathing. And anything else, the conversations, the events, the plans, they can all be grouped together as stories that we have brought into this space. Now, if there is something that's a challenge, a problem, something that's still with you, what some teachers call it, this way of perceiving this problem, this challenge, we're being very specific. We can see, we're up close, we're looking at a situation or a set of circumstances that we can't seem to get rid of. And this is a practice where we step back. And so right now, imagine yourself being very close, maybe even with your nose pressed against the glass, staring at this issue, this story, this challenge, this problem, which seems bigger than we are, which no solution appears to be there, at least not at this moment. Now take a few, let's imagine ourselves taking a few steps back. And some teachers call this becoming more general. Becoming more general. We take a few steps back. And I'll give you a little example. It's supposing one of us, we wished we loved flowers or incredible pieces of art, and we wished we were billionaires with the ability to buy those incredible arrangements that price tags are not even attached to, those pieces of art that you bid for. Now that's being very specific. And then stepping back, it simply means relax. And when you're very specific, your muscles are tight. There's a lot of focus on, when is this going to come? I want it now. And taking a few steps back, it sometimes involves just literally doing that. Flowers. Floral arrangements. I have access. You tell yourself things like, I have access to florists, and many of the florists, they have beautiful displays on their windows, and I have the ability to enjoy those. And there are many around them. It's not available to everybody. We are very lucky in this country, I know that. Just because I've returned back home and found it very difficult to find a florist sometimes. And so there are florists everywhere, and sometimes even your local supermarket. And so you become more general. I can enjoy the flowers in these spaces, and then you start remembering that you might have parks, access to parks, little secret gardens. It may or may not be near your house, and you may even have a garden, some gardens near you, might even be your own garden. And there are flowers there. And then you begin easing yourself as you become more general. Your muscles begin to relax. And you might even go and visit one or two of these florists and enjoy their displays, their Christmas displays, and whatever else you might see at this moment. And if it is art that was your passion, the galleries, and if the lockdown was affecting you, then virtual galleries, most of the galleries have opened up their There are galleries through the internet, and then you suddenly begin to discover that you have access to all of this art, and you become more general. You've stepped back, and it's no longer, the problem no longer seems as large as it once was. And you notice your emotions changing. And then you can even step back a little bit further, and you might notice the trees and the squirrels on the trees. And you might notice how the leaves drop in autumn, how the squirrels continue to move about, completely present and in a knowing way that everything will be all right. You might admire some other aspects of nature, and then you step back and you begin to get a glimpse into what well-being is. Well-being, you could call that well-being. And then you notice gravity. You notice how your body stays grounded on the earth, pretty much the way you're seated right now. But gravity, our friend, how did this happen? And no effort required. Another example of well-being. And then you step a little bit further back and you look up into the sky, and you begin to notice the daylight or the darkness. And you notice how the earth, how this planet, it seems to rotate without us human beings needing to affect or put any effort at all into it. The earth spins, and day turns into night, and night into day. No effort required. Could this be what presence and being is? Where there is a complete releasing of the need to do. There's just a perfect balance. And then you might begin to step, and you might even step back a little bit further, and you might notice the way in which you've noticed the way in which the earth rotates. And then you begin to recognize, whether or not you can see stars in the sky, you begin to recognize how this planet orbits around the sun, resulting in the changing seasons. Again, no effort required. A glimpse into well-being. And then we come back to our own bodies, the universe contained within this form called our bodies, the trillions of cells. Very much like everything we've been experiencing as we stepped back. Our hearts beating, our blood flowing, our lungs operating automatically. And you know this because you know that no effort is required, because it's not something you need to remember to do. We've never said, I forgot to breathe, I forgot to make my heart beat, I forgot to pump my blood. No, it just happens. Examples of well-being, and we've stepped back into this state of being that lies not only within our bodies but all around us. in today's practice. When we talk about doing less and being more, this is the part of us that we will be tapping into. Very often, many of the chronic pains and the illnesses that we go through, they have so much to do with us believing that we need to do something in order to be happy, in order to experience peace and stillness. And so we begin to use our minds, which consists of nothing but everything we've learned in the past, to push against our well-being, to push against our happiness, our health, and everything else that takes us away from that state of stillness and balance that we have been getting glimpses into. Let us return to this space, not just today, but now. I'll ring the bell. And we'll begin to inhabit our bodies. A little bit more fully than a few moments ago. And it's not that complicated. It's just the body with its 5 senses. Its 5 senses. One of these senses is the sense of touch, which covers not only the surfaces that bathe you, the surfaces, everything from the top of your crown, your head, to the tips of your toes, covered in skin, the sense of touch. And it doesn't quite even end there, because there are those parts within the body, like the nose, where you can feel the air moving in and out as you breathe. You can feel what's going on within your mouth. The bell, it awakens your sense of hearing. You might even be using the bell, the sound of the bell, tuning into the sound of the bell as a representation of the unfolding of this present moment. And then around the sound of the bell are all of those other sounds. You might have family members in different rooms. You might have birds outside your window. You might have car alarms or planes or cars. It could be anything, but all are gifts, bringing us into the present moment. And then the sense of sight. For most of us, the eyelids are shut, but this is also a really interesting indication of where we are. And the mind, it begins to recognize how usually when the eyes are closed, it simply means we're sleeping or having a nap, or trying to make our way into those zones, those sleepy zones. But now fully awake, fully alert, possibly even more alert than we've ever been before. The skin awake, the sense of hearing awake, even the sense of sight awake, and becoming aware that the eyelids are shut, noticing even the shadows, that play of light that somehow manages to penetrate through the eyelids. The sense of smell, the sense of taste, where you may smell and taste something, or there may be the absence of smell and taste. And that too is your experience at this present moment. Bringing yourself back to the surfaces of your body, establishing your posture, establishing through the skin around your legs, the skin around your arms, the skin around your shoulders, the skin around your neck and your heads. What posture I have adopted at this moment? My eyes are closed, and so it's not really a visual experience, it's a sensory experience. Your hands are placed in a particular way. Your legs are folded in a particular way at the joint. And you might conclude that you might either be sitting or lying down or adopting whatever posture it is, but noticing, experiencing. And now we can be a little bit more specific in the sensations that we're experiencing. And if you like, you can start from the lowest parts of your body that are in contact with the surfaces underneath you. Different for each and every one of us. If you're on a chair, the soles of your feet might be in contact with the carpet or the flooring underneath you. And then it's that other part where your body is resting on a cushion, a chair. Today, not today, but right now, how does the surface feel? Is it balanced, giving your body the right amount of balance? Does it feel too hard or too soft? Watch the sensations. And watch how, as we watch the sensations, as we observe the sensations, the mind begins to take an interest in what's happening right now, because it knows that our awareness is focused in this present moment on these particular surfaces. And the mind, it starts to leave some of those stories behind. Stories from the past, stories well into the future. It begins to leave all of that and arrive to somehow help us decipher and translate these sensations, which are only sensations without the mind. The fact that you know that it is a soft or a hard surface is because the mind learned what hard and softness is. The very fact that you know that whether your body is comfortable or not, again, it's a judgment that comes from the mind, because that too was decided through previous experiences. And so we begin to understand what a valuable and precious tool the mind is in translating everything that we experience through our senses. Almost like a filter, like a window, but a window that appears to, a pane of glass that appears to change its color. With us, this person you consider yourself to be, deciding which filter you are going to use. With the red filter, the whole world looks red. With a yellow filter, the whole world looks yellow. With a filter filled with optimism and hope, the whole world looks quite pleasant. With a filter full of fear and worries, it becomes a completely different experience. The same with anger. The same with many of those different filters we sometimes find ourselves unconsciously using. And this is a practice where we step back, allowing for the space between this presence that we are beginning to get glimpses of, and the mind which is beginning to appear as a separate entity, constantly moving, a collection of information, experiences, voices, images accumulated throughout its life that's separated, and observe. Even using this space as an opportunity to forgive ourselves. For anything we feel we should or should not have done in the past, because it's almost certain that everything that should or should not have done would have come from that space, that place called the mind. But today we get a glimpse into a new way in which to live, to experience, and to simply be. And so we forgive. We allow. We make peace with all that we find in this moment. No longer too tall or short, no longer too rich or poor, no longer too good or bad. Just the space around all of these judgments, these ideas, these words, the silence around these words, becoming this silence. But becoming sometimes means action and doing. So let's use different terminology, allowing ourselves to simply be all that we are. sitting, breathing, and that's it. Present, here, in the now. Occasionally looking up to see where the mind is. Sometimes in the past, sometimes in the future. But simply watching, releasing the need to engage. Come back to your bodies. And then create within your mind's eye an image of a mountain. A three-dimensional image of a mountain. And feel your body merging into this image. It's easier when you imagine the mountain to be merging into your body with its shoulders becoming the sides of this great mountain. The chest and the back becoming the other two sides of this mountain. This mountain that's been here for a very long time, longer than any man-made structure, which is why we use it in this practice. Although this state of being and state of presence that we often refer to could very well be much older and much wiser than this mountain, this rock of awareness that we are describing. Our head's becoming the peak of this great mountain. Bringing your attention to your ears, your nose, your face, especially the skin around your face, your forehead and your scalp. And then noticing how, I don't know if any of your so-called challenges, life situations and stories have entered into this part of the practice. Or maybe my voice is directing you back towards them, where you're looking for problems and some of those challenges which actually would, for a moment, would have felt completely irrelevant simply because you were in the present moment. And then you begin to get a glimpse into how powerful the present moment actually is. But now that my voice has guided you back to some of these challenges and problems, visualize them as the clouds and the mist surrounding this peak. And if you could visualize yourself here sitting surrounded by mist, those clouds covering your vision, distorting your hearing, distorting your sense of hearing even. That's pretty much what it feels like to be angry, frustrated, sad, upset. Completely clouded. Literally clouded by thoughts from the past, fears about the future. Forgetting that we are the mountain, and actually believing ourselves to be this mist, this inky mist, these clouds, believing that these clouds have the ability to carry us into the past and into the future, which is what many of us experience, which is possibly even the very reason why we are here in this practice, just to remind ourselves that we are not the clouds. And then we bring ourselves back to the space where we are seated, feeling the mountain, feeling the sides of this mountain, feeling our chest and the back, which are still sides of this great mountain. And now we will just spend a few moments grounding ourselves, because for a moment, just for a moment, we believe that the clouds could have carried us away. But let's remind ourselves that it's the clouds that are moving, quite separate from this witnessing presence that we are tapping into, that we are reminding ourselves of. And so we bring our center of gravity, we seek out the center of gravity within our body. We seek out those surfaces underneath us which are in contact with the chairs and the cushions and the mats. We feel how stable our bodies feel as they rest on these surfaces. That center of gravity, it might be around your navel area. But just like the mountain, we're beginning to recognize how the part of the mountain that's visible is a fraction of what it truly is. It's only the surface level that is visible. And with that understanding and knowing, let us lower our center of gravity first just to the lowest point in our body, which is in contact with the chair and the cushion. and then allowing it to gravitate downwards into the flooring underneath you. And then moving deeper. I don't know if you're in a tall building, but just allowing the center of gravity to move further and further downwards, so that you seek out that part of you that merges with the crust of the earth. Having merged into this mountain, let us be the mountain in its entirety. And so your awareness, it seeps into the earth, falling deeper and deeper and deeper into the crust of the earth, feeling the stability that comes with it, yet still understanding that there will be tremors, there are movements, there is change constantly. But have you noticed how the mountain does not attempt to resist any of these changes? It simply allows. Let us absorb this quality into the core of our being, this ability to allow not only the changes that are occurring within our bodies, but the changes all around us. There is the changing light. As day turns into night, a cycle that seems to continue and turn into changing seasons. And then we begin to recognize the whole ecosystem that is being supported by this form, by this mountain. The forests, the skin, the rivers, the blood, the life, countless forms of life, from the single blade of grass and wildflower to the animal, birds, nests, and everything else. A little bit like the organs within our body, the cells within our body. But have you noticed how the mountain, it observes, it witnesses, it interferes very little. It is in a constant state of being. And so all of this life, it seems to move very harmoniously. There seems to be a balance and harmony between all of these life forms. And in the same way, let us enter into this state of being more fully so that we may release that doing state which often interferes with this balance. Where we step outside, if you can imagine yourself stepping outside of your body so that your body simply balances itself the way the mountain does. Allowing the cells, allowing the organs, allowing the breathing, allowing the digestive system to simply unfold as it knows precisely how. Have we grounded ourselves? Are we now aware of our center of gravity? Are we aware of the way in which we are connected to this planet? Are we now aware that we have stopped moving? That we have achieved a level of stillness? If so, could this be the right time to observe the clouds? To observe the mist? And then comes the recognition that it is the clouds that are moving. It is the mist that is moving. As we sit, as we breathe, as we watch, as we witness, as we observe, as we smile, knowing that whatever it is we may be experiencing, of course I refer to the life stories, the situations, they are moving. Just as many of our previous challenges have dissolved into the past, retained only through the memory and the focus we give it from this present moment. We now stabilize ourselves and allow the clouds to move. Just sitting, breathing, and waiting. What are we waiting for? The gaps to appear. There has to be gaps. We know that. And we sit. We breathe. And in this visualization, the gaps begin to appear very quickly. Where there are blue skies, warm sunshine. Or if it's night, from this vantage point, there are the stars, the moon, the other planets, a tapestry of lights in the sky. Experienced through the stillness and the clarity of simply being present here in the now. Very often we've become so accustomed through habit. We've become so accustomed to focusing on the clouds that even once the clouds have left, they've traveled past us. They've moved beyond our reach. But we continue to gaze upon them. Completely forgetting about the space, those gaps in between, this peak, this mountain that is who we are right now. Still focusing on the different forms, the images, maybe even the sounds, the thunder and the flashes of lightning, only because of habit, only because it's what we What looks familiar? What is familiar? But we sit. I'll ring the bell now. And when I ring the bell, breathe in the space. Breathe in the space and the clarity that now surrounds you. And as you breathe in this space, shift your focus from the clouds, maybe even closing your eyes from within this visualization. Reminding ourselves of this space, how it seems to surround the peak, and shifting our identification very gradually, very gently, from the form taken by the thoughts, the problems, the challenges, to this space, this clarity which seems to reach up high into the heavens. Beyond the stars, beyond the moons, beyond everything, with no limit. It's to the right of us, it's to the left of us, it's behind us, it's in front of us. The focus shifts, the identification shifts into this space. Becoming this space, we become aware of the deepest valleys. The rivers that appear to flow down this great rock of awareness, and the lakes through which they sometimes flow. We follow the rivers all the way down to those points where they seem to merge into the oceans and the seas. Countless other rivers merging into the same ocean. Each and every one of us possibly represented by one of these rivers, merging into this vast expanse that is the present moment, that we tap into together, creating a new momentum in our lives. Each and every one of us having brought different experiences, different momentums into this meditation room, but leaving completely changed, completely new, completely fresh, a new beginning, a new start. Why don't I will just ring the bell for the next few moments. Just contemplate on what a new beginning means to you. A new start. And for many of us, when we talk about new starts, we begin to focus again on the clouds. We bring our focus back to the clouds and say, I don't want that, and I don't want that, and I don't want that. And have you noticed how the focus shifts back on all that we want to change? But let's just bring ourselves back to this space. and shifting our attention to that other part. That which we would like. That which would bring comfort, ease, laughter, kindness, understanding. And have you noticed that all of these are already here? They've always been here. And with the final bell, let's bring this space with us. Watching how the day unfolds around us and before us and within us, but also the practice. We remind ourselves that the practice also involves forgiving ourselves and not being too hard on ourselves when we forget all of this. And in allowing ourselves to make mistakes. We bring ourselves back into this space. Every moment becoming the only moment. And so every practice becoming the only practice.